Minutes after the Egyptian Prime Minister promised no violence will be used.
It is not a revolution, it's an attack against the revolution. I told the youth that I have met more than 350 of you on 11 days.
But there was no rescue for these protesters who continued battling the military for a second day in a row. Violence spread from the cabinet and parliament buildings into Tahrir Square. The revolution began.
This is what bin Laden's compound looked like after the attack. The president was not 100% certain bin Laden was there. But the Navy SEALs launched the surgical strike and a firefight ensued. 40 minutes of an intense operation and firefight where U.S. forces killed public enemy number one, Osama bin Laden, one of his adult sons, 2 couriers, and a woman used as a shield by one of the male members of Al-Qaeda. With 1 U.S. helicopter lost due to mechanical failure, the SEALs carried bin Laden's dead body onto the remaining helicopter and left the compound back to Afghanistan.
The death of bin Laden marks the most significant achievement to date in our nation's effort to defeat Al-Qaeda.
And in the streets in front of the White House, celebration.
It is Saturday in Japan, and a nation all too familiar with earthquakes is still trying to grasp the most violent ever recorded in their land. The countryside is choked with smoke from fires that burned all night long. More than 400 are dead, almost 1,000 still missing. Entire neighborhoods are underwater, and the world watches as 2 nuclear reactors remain dangerously unstable. As rescues begin in Japan, families back here in the States anxiously await any word on their loved ones.
It's going to crash and it's going to fall pretty hard because markets are ruled right now by fear. Investors and the big money, the smart money. I'm talking about the big funds, the hedge funds, the institutions. They don't buy this rescue plan. They basically, they know the market is toast. They know the stock market is finished. The euro, as far as they're concerned, they don't really care. They're moving their money away to safer assets, like treasury bonds, 30-year bonds, and the US dollar. So it's not going to work. The 30s depression, the depression in the 30s, wasn't just about a market crash. There were some people who were prepared to make money from that crash. And I think anybody can do that. It isn't just for some people in the elite. Anybody can actually make money. It's an opportunity. When the market crashes, when the euro and the big stock markets crash, if you know what to do.
District number 2 in the center of Sirte, where Gaddafi's fighters made their last stand. Even though they were up against superior numbers and firepower, they put up a tough fight. But before arriving, he died. These exclusive images were again captured on the mobile phones of fighters. Exactly what happened is not clear, but that was not important to these men who filled the streets of Sirte with celebratory gunfire. Gaddafi's defense minister and head of military intelligence were both said to have been killed Thursday. They sang of victory and a new Libya. There were some pockets of resistance which were soon mopped up. Prisoners were paraded through the streets. It was claimed they were either mercenaries or die-hard loyalists. Some showed signs of physical abuse and were terrified. They were driven off to an unknown location. But among the celebrations, a drive through the rubble gave an idea of the true cost of the battle for Sirte. Hardly a building remained unscathed. Evidence of the intense fighting was everywhere. And the human cost. A body in the street and in the grounds of the small clinic in the heart of the combat zone, the graves of 24 men, probably Gaddafi fighters, buried almost where they died. What started as a peaceful protest in Benghazi 8 months ago has finally ended with the death of the man who called his people rats and cockroaches. But he was right about one thing. He said he would die in Libya.
슬픔을 용기를 바꿔서 김현대장 김정은대장 도장
This is really like teetering on the brink of life and death. The center of this crisis is the Horn of Africa. This is Somalia and Ethiopia and Kenya are the three main countries involved here. Where it's worst right now is in Somalia. This is the most significant humanitarian crisis in the world today. The largest refugee camp in the world is growing day by day because of people who are escaping their country because of instability and just a simple lack of food and water. This happens family by family. One mom and dad waking up in the morning and realizing there's nothing left and they have to go. These families are setting out on a road trip, usually on foot, and they're doing it in the most hazardous environment you can imagine.
Part of the problem is that you have many different agencies working to try to deal with the impact of the storm. But beyond that, this part of the Philippines is not used to either flash floods or landslides, which really has caused the most damage and is the cause of the deaths. Tropical Storm Sandong dropped more than 10 hours of heavy rain Friday night, and its effects, not the storm itself, actually caused the casualties. Government says it warned residents to evacuate, but most didn't because, again, these areas have not been traditionally hit by the floods and the landslides. So Friday night, the flood waters rose alarmingly fast. It reached roof level while many residents slept. Nearly all the casualties died in the flash flood. 5 were killed in a landslide triggered by the rain, according to officials here in Manila. Right now, the sun has just set, and the search and rescue operations continue. You've seen some pictures of the soldiers out there. There are at least 20,000 soldiers conducting these search and rescue operations. They say that there could be as many as 100,000 people displaced by the rains. Tyler?
A little earlier I spoke to Ali Asbati, who was attending the youth camp on Utoya Island. Now safely back in Oslo, he described what happened.
Like many other people, I thought in the beginning that it might be some kind of joke going on and people were oversensitive because of the bombs that had been reported earlier in Oslo. But when we finally ran out of the building and we were heading down a slope to go down towards the water, I turned back and I saw 2 bodies lying there just on the field next to the building that we had just left.
Well, here's your phone hacking 101. It's done by illegally accessing cell phone voicemails. Unscrupulous journalists would obtain the personal cell phone numbers of celebrities, politicians, even crime victims. Because most people don't change their voicemail code, the default 1234, journalists could access the person's voicemail and bingo, a free pass to eavesdrop on sensitive messages. The practice was known to have been carried out at the News of the World, the flagship paper in Rupert Murdoch's media empire. He had enjoyed a privileged position in British society, courted by successive politicians, until the nefarious practices of some of his journalists were uncovered. Now, listen to how politicians are talking about Murdoch.
Everybody on him scared to death to do anything that he doesn't like. So he is in the spider in the middle of this web.
Petitions to the press, three cornerstones of the British establishment which have been tarnished by the scandal. Convicted phone hacker Glenn Mulcair, who worked as an investigator for the News of the World, has now been ordered by a High Court judge to reveal who commissioned him to hack into phones. It could further implicate staffers at the now closed tabloid. And the arrest of the paper's former Hollywood correspondent leaves unanswered the intriguing question, were celebrities in Tinseltown targeted too?